What is going on, guys, and welcome to Ultimate Navbar video. In this video we're going to create 8 different navbars, some of whom are going to have a drop downs, as you can see over here, and they're going to be transparent, and some of whom are going to have actually multiple drop downs, including the responsive one. It's going to be very basic. However, you can see that as I'm scrolling down less than 700, we're going to see over here this toggle, so I can push it up and down. However, we're going to start with the most basic one. So if you don't know anything about navbars, this is the place to be. So you can see that we have the most basic navbar. However, we added this little CSS transition property. So now you can see that they're actually spinning 360 degrees. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to create a navbar that's sitting right on top of the page, and it is fixed. So as we're scrolling up and down, actually the navbar stays there. After that, we're going to create a side navbar over here, so you can still see that as I'm scrolling up and down a page, it still stays there on left. And we changed around a little bit the CSS property, so now you can see that instead of spinning 360 degrees, it's actually going left and right. After that, we're going to create a first drop down, and we're also going to change, you can see this CSS property to scaling, so it looks like we're zooming in. And you can see our first drop down, and you can see that these list items, if I actually click it, you can see that it acts like a little spring. All right. After that, again, like I said, we created a first responsive one, and over here you can see that we have these links, and as I'm hovering over the links, their actually background color is changing, and we can still have this toggle button over here. So let's make it big again. And after that, we're going to create a transparent navbar right in the middle of the page that has one drop down over here like this. And you can see that it's sitting exactly horizontally and vertically in the middle. After that, we're going to create a equal width navbar. You can see all these links are equal width, and they each over here has one drop down. And you can see that it is transparent and it's sitting pretty much on the top of the banner. The banner has a background image over here. And the last but not least, we're going to create a navbar that has actually not only one drop down, but it actually has 2 drop downs. So if you want to know everything about navbars, fire up your text editors, and I will see you in a second. Now that we are in our text editors, let's start building navbars. Now you can see my setup over here. I'm using the brackets because I like this live preview over here. And you can see that the only thing that I have is index.html with just some basic tabs. And I guess I can just write over here navbar. That's going to be our title. And you can see that the only thing that I have is these three pictures that we're going to be using. And pretty much everything else needs to be done. So the first thing with the navbar, obviously we're going to need to create a unordered list. And we're going to place that unordered list within this nav tags over here. Then we're going to create a unordered list over here like this. And within unordered list, we're going to create a list items, right? So we're just going to create, I don't know, like 4 or 5 of them. I guess 5. And over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be href. And the link is going to be going nowhere over here like this. And then I'm going to say that the first one is going to be home. And let me just paste it a couple of times. So it's going to be like 5. Over here like this. So in here it's going to be info, and then it's going to be service over here like this, and then it's going to be survey, and the last one is going to be drop down, right? So it's going to be survey, and the last one is going to be drop down. So this pretty much is the setup for the basic navbar just by using HTML. Well, obviously we're going to need to use a CSS actually to style it and get it in line and everything, but just for the HTML part, this is pretty much it. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to actually go and create CSS. However, I'm not going to create a separate CSS file because I think that it's a little bit more visible if we're just doing it in the document. Now I know it's not the right way, and obviously we should be creating an external link, but just for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to create a style tags over here in the head tags, and I'm just going to start styling from here. And the first thing that we always want to do is actually style the body first. And what I'm going to write with the body is that I want a margin 0 over here like this, and I want a padding 0. So then pretty much you can see that we're going to be ignoring all the default paddings and margins from the body element. And the next thing that I'm going to do is actually create a font family over here. I'm just going to say that font family, and I'm just going to go with the pretty basic. I'm just going to go with monospace. So this is going to be my font family. And right now I'm pretty much done with the body. I'm not going to be styling anymore the body. Body is going to stay like this. Now the next thing what we're going to do is actually style the unordered list. And pretty much the first thing that we're always going to do is we're going to do this. You see this list style type, and see these are those little annoying circles over here on the left. And we're just going to write none. So now you can see that they're gone. And after that, pretty much always we're going to do the padding 0 and margin 0. And the reason for that, again, you can see how it moved right away to the left. And if I say margin 0 over here, like this, also margin 0. And therefore, again, we're just getting rid of all the default margins that on our list would have. And after that, we're going to create a line height and actually height, right? We won't going to be able to see it right away, but let me just create a background color. So maybe that's going to help us. So we go over here and we say background color, and we say that we're going to have a dark gray over here like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a height. We're going to say that the height is going to be 60 pixels over here. And just so our text is actually in the center, we're going to create a line height the same. We're going to say that line height is going to be 60 pixels over here like this. So it's going to be 60 pixels over here like this. Now you can see the problem with this is that on our list over here, the list items are still sitting like this vertically. They're not horizontally. And that's the thing that we would need to actually fix by actually changing the display of list items. So here we would write the UL, LI. That means all the descendants, all the LI descendants of UL. And over here, we're going to say the display property over here like this. And we're going to say that we want it inline block. See, like this. So what happens over here is you can see that right now, right away, they're inline block because they're right now a inline element. So what we can do over here, we go back to the unordered list, and we can say that we would want a text align, and we want text align center. So now you can see how easily it was to actually move them all to the center, and how easy it is actually to transform them from the block elements to inline, and therefore now we have a navbar. And that's pretty much for the unordered list, and list items is all there is to know, and that's how we can style them. Now, one more thing that I could maybe add is, let's say, width. So we have a little bit more width over here. So I'm just going to say that it's going to be like 150 pixels. You can see the problem is going to be with a bracket as I'm working. The screen is a little bit too small. So you can see as I'm making it bigger, like a normal size screen, then it would all fit. But if I'm making smaller, it's obviously, you can see that they're not going to be fitting in a screen. So I'm just going to make it like, I don't know, like 100. So then they can all fit. So even while we're working just with a live preview, we can see what's happening on like the screen would be regular, right? Now, after that, we would need to style these links over here, these href elements. And the way we would do that, we would select UL, LI, and A. And what it means is that all the links over here that are descendants of a LI, that are descendants of UL, which is unordered list, right? So over here, then we would create a display block, and let me show you why we're using the display block. So the point over here is that you can see that if I add a background color over here, like I'm just going to use some basic background color. Now you can see that when I had display block, as I'm hovering over the link, only if I'm just touching the box a little bit, it's already acting as a link. Now, if I wouldn't have this display block, you can see what's happening. It would only be hovering if I would be going around the actual text. So therefore, we always say display, and we say we display block. That's the reasoning. Now I'm going to get rid of this annoying color over here because we really don't need it. And the next thing that we would actually style would be text align, and I would say the text align center. And I'm going to show you at the end of the video why we're pretty much doing it twice and what would be the difference if we wouldn't be doing that. Now, next thing that we're going to do is actually say text decoration, and text decoration is going to be none. And the reason for that, we want to get rid of these annoying lines that are over there. The next thing that we would want to do is actually change the color of the font. So we would over here write color, and we would say color, and I would use a chocolate one over here like this, something like this. So now we have a font color that is chocolate. And after that, what we would need to do is actually style it as when we are hovering over this link. So UL, LI, and A over here, and then we would say hover. That would be the state when we're hovering actually around the link. And we would say that we would want a border over here, and we would want a border of 2 pixels solid black. So 2 pixels solid black. And this is going to be our border just when we're hovering, and we would want to make a little round corner, so we would say border radius over here, border radius, and that should be something like 5 pixels over here. So what's happening, you can see as I'm hovering over, you can see that it's actually creating this black border over here, and it has these round corners. Now let's do our transformations over here. So what we would need to do is actually transition. This is the property that we write, transition, and over here we would write transform over here like this, transform, and we would use a 1 second, and we would say that we would want it ease in and out, right? So we would ease in and out like this, something like that. And then while we're hovering, we would need to write over here that transform. This is the how we would actually make them spin, and we would say the transform would be a rotate over here and 360 degrees. So this is just a little extra what we can do. I mean, we had already basic navbar. However, right now as we're hovering, you can see that we got this nice over here, the effect that they're actually spinning 360 degrees. Now, when I say over here the text align properties, right, when we were talking about it, and I said over here that let's say that we have text align, right, and it's center, right? What if I would do left over here, right? So you can see that if they're aligned left, they're aligned left. However, if I would say align right over here like this, and you can see that how they're all moved to the right. Now the problem is if I don't have this text align center over here, what's going to happen, you can see the text actually within the link is also lining up to the left. And that's not what we want. So if let's say we want the links to the right, however the text to the left, we would need to write a text align and text align center, right? This would solve the problem. Now in this case we had both of them center, so it didn't really matter. However, in the case when we want them, let's say differently, it's gonna make a difference if you are actually styling the actual link over here like this. And now you can see that this is all pretty much for the basic navbar that has this little transition property that actually it's spinning over here as we're hovering over the links. So I think right now we're ready actually to jump to the fixed navbar and actually create something new. So let's create fixed top navbar. And what I would do over here, I'm just going to create a new file, and I'm going to say fixed navbar here like this, and I'm going to say that this is going to be HTML. And just so you have the previous one and the one that we're going to be working on, what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to take everything that we have in this file, and I'm just going to copy this like this over here, copy, and then we have fixed navbar, and I'm just going to paste it. And now you have both of them, so whatever changes we're going to be doing over here, it's still going to be saved as a separate document. Now for the fixed navbar, obviously we would need to create a div over here, and div would be basically what's going to be in the rest of the page. So over here I'm just going to write the class for the div, and the class is going to be box. Let's say something like this, and over here I'm just going to create a heading 1, and I'm going to say that the heading 1 is going to say hello world. Something like this. And what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to paste it all the way down here so you can see what's happening. And you can see that as I'm scrolling down, the navbar is actually disappearing, right? Maybe I'm just going to add a couple of more H1s over here just in case. But the point of this is we want to make a navbar that would stay even as we're scrolling down. Now, how do we do that? So here we go all the way up to the unordered list, and you can see that everything else is going to stay the same. We're just going to change the actual position. And what we would need to do over here, we would need to write a width, and we would need to say that width should be 100% over here like this. Then we would need to set a position, and we would need to say that position is going to be fixed over here like this. And after that, once we set the position, then we would need to tell the location. So we would tell that it's going to be top 0 pixels, means that it's pushed all the way to the top, and to the left it's also going to be 0. So it's, as you understand, it's all the way to the top and all the way to the left, right? Now let's start actually dealing with our div, because that's pretty much it what we have with our unordered list. So over here, what I would need to do is actually create a class, a selector for the class of box. That's going to be the class of our div over here, this class. And over here, I would say that first that the width is going to be 100% over here like this. And then after that, I would say that actual text align should be center, something like this. And next thing that I would want to do is actually background color. And I would say that background color should be something like this almond one over here. And the last thing that we would need to do is actually, we would need to check how wide is our navbar. You can see that height is 60 and line height is 60. But we obviously would only care about the height. And we would say that the margin to the top over here like this should be 60 pixels. So basically what we're doing is we're basically pushing this off 60 pixels, so it's actually lining up right underneath our navbar. So you can see what's happening. As I'm scrolling up and down, the navbar stays on the top, and you can see that we didn't change any kind of any other properties than actual position. And obviously over here you can see with this position top left, we obviously could have done a bottom over here. So this is going to be our bottom navbar. So over here, if I write bottom, you can see that it's sitting on the bottom. Now, however, we would need to also change this a margin top property to margin bottom, because that only then it would make sense. So over here I have margin bottom, and it's going to be 60. So now you can see that I have over here technically the bottom of the page is on the top, because I changed it around. And so this is how we can actually create a fixed navbar that's sitting either on the top of the page or on the bottom of the page. Let's keep moving forward, and let's actually create a navbar that would be sitting on a side of the page. So how do we create a fixed sidebar? So again, the first thing we would need to do is actually create a new file over here like this. And I'm just going to say that this is going to be sidebar HTML, something like this. And over here, what I would do, again, I would just copy this one over here all the way to the bottom. And we're just going to say copy this, and we're going to go to sidebar and just paste it over here. And over here, we would just need to actually change a couple of things over here. So the first, we would want to actually set the width to be, let's say, to the 30% over here. Then we would need to get rid of this bottom and left over here. And after that, we would obviously need to have the height all the way, right? This is what we want with our navbar over here, all the way to the bottom. So over here, we would actually have to create a height for this box. So I would say that it's going to be 1600 pixels over here. This is going to be the height for the box. So now when I go back over here with unordered list, I could just say that I want height, and I want this height to be 100%. Now the problem is that over here we already had a height of 60, right? So over here, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to delete this over here like this. And I'm just going to leave the line height of 60. And over here, you can see that once I press it over here, you can see how my div is actually spanning all the way to the bottom. Now there's a couple of problems over here. You can see that my list items are not actually spanning all the way across because they're actually inline block, right? So over here, what we would do is actually change this around. We would say that we want them block, and instead of 100 pixels, we want them 100%. So now you can see that what we got, that we have actually a list items that are spanning all the way within our fixed navbar over here, right? And another thing that probably we would want to change, we don't want them to rotate like this. We would probably want them to spin left to right. So over here, what we would need to do is actually we would need to change this transformation, and we would say translation should be a little bit different, and it should be actually translate like this, and translating, let's say 30 degrees, that's going to be left and right, and over here we're just going to say that this is going to be 0. So you can see what's happening over here. Right now they're going to be transforming left and right. Now there's one more thing that we would need to do with this text over here. What we would need to do is actually, if we have 30% over here, you see this is the width of our on our list. However, we would change it over here to 70%. And what we would need to do is also float to the right. And over here we're going to say float. And we're going to say that float, we're going to be floating this to the right. And after that, we're going to create a margin that's going to be from the left, because this is where our actual sidebar is. So over here we write margin left, and over here we would write 25% or 30% in this case, because we'll be using the 30%. So now I can see that right now I have a sticky sidebar that's actually as a navbar that has a links over here that are spinning left to the right, and you can see that as I'm hovering left and right, it still stays over here. And the same is if we're going actually to the bottom and back to the top, it still does the same thing, that I still have my sidebar that has these links that are spinning left and right. So now that we have done that, let's look at how we can actually create a drop down out of this one of these list items, so we can get more list items over. In next examples, we're going to create multiple drop down menus. So I would just want to go over the basics while we don't have any kind of background images or anything messing up with us. So I would just want to show you the basics, so you're actually pretty good to go if you are, let's say, if you don't understand the next examples. So in order to create a nested drop-down menu over here within this last li over here, we would need to create another unordered list. So I would say over here that I would have a href. Obviously this is going to be a link, but obviously I would need to create a list item, which is I didn't do. So my bad. Over here is the list item, and here is a href, something like this, and here we're creating a hashtag. So here's the hashtag over here like this, and now we have let's say we're going to call this menu 1, right? This is going to be our first layer, and what I would do over here is actually just make a little bit more room. I'm going to copy this, and you can see that I'm copying with UL, so that's not good, but over here I'll just get rid of it, and you can see that I have right now 3 menu items. Now, if I would want to place another unordered list right here, only thing that I would do over here and just copy this, and I would create again a little bit more room over here, and the only thing I would need to do is actually paste it over here. So now you can see that I have 3 more menus, right? So this is going to be submenu, and this is going to be submenu, and this is also going to be submenu. Now let's go to styling, because this is where we actually create these menus. And what we would need to do first, obviously we would need to create a let's say that for the body, whole body, the margin is going to be 0 and the padding is going to be 0, right? This is going to be the point. Now after that, we're going to start styling an unordered list over here like this, and I'm going to say that I would again want a margin 0 over here and a padding 0. And the next thing that I would want to do is actually style a list style type over here, and I would want it to be style type none over here like this, and then I would want to say that I would want them to have width of, let's say, 100%. And I'll actually explain a little bit later why I want 100%, but the main point of what I want you to understand, that I'm selecting all these ULs over here, all the unordered lists, not just the ones on the top. Because over here you can see that I'm actually selecting all the descendants of the nav that are UL, right? That are unordered lists. However, let's say that in this case I just want to select the first list items over here like this, right? This one, and this one. The way we would write over here in CSS, we actually would write a nav, then we would say UL, and then we have a list item, right? Now I'm selecting only the children of this unordered list. So over here I would write display, and I would say that display is going to be inline block, something like this. So now you can see that it kind of moved, but you can see that these ones are actually in line. Now don't worry about these ones pushing it all the way on to the top. That's fine, but when we'll fix that, however, you can see that these ones are in line, right? I didn't select all of them, because if I would just skip this, you can see that it's actually would be looking like this, right? Because right now I'm selecting all of them, but I just want to select the first line. Now, next thing that I would want to do is actually position them relative. And that's another thing that we're just going to go over a little bit later. But for now, just keep them relative, right? And the next thing that I would want to do is actually create a nav li, and I would want to select. So right now I'm selecting all of them, and I'm saying that I would want them to have width of, let's say, like 125 pixels. And you can see how all of them right away are getting this width. And then I would say text align center, and again you can see how all of them are getting that. And the last thing that I would want a background color, and I would want to say the background color is dark, I don't know, dark gray. So now I can see how all of them got the background color. And after that, we're going to select all the anchor tags, and again syntax is exactly the same. We write like this, so now we're selecting all of them. Now I'm saying display block over here like this. Then I'm saying that I want text decoration, none. And after that, I'm saying that I would want margin top, right? Something like this. And again, we're selecting all of them right now, not just the ones somewhere in the list, because we're not using these angle brackets over here. We're actually selecting all of them. Now let's start actually styling these menu 1 items, right? And you can see how I'm going to be selecting them. Then I'm going to write ULI, and over here I'm just going to say that I'm selecting the UL that is the child of this LI. So here I would write that I would want them to be position, and over here I would want them to be position absolute. So now you can see what happens right away, right? Because I actually moved it with positioning. And this is how you'll be working with these unordered lists. You'll make them position, and then you're going to say that you would want a top, let's say to be 100% in this case, like this. So this is 100%. And over here we would want left, let's say 0. Now what are these numbers, right? Over here with these numbers, I'm basically controlling where it's at, right? So if I would say like 120 pixels or 1200, you can see how it moved up all the way up. Now if we put it 100, it's all the way to the top. Now, and it's the same work with left, right? Or here you can see how I'm moving with the left. But I'm fine here with just the 0, so I'm just going to keep it like this. Now, after that, I would want to show you how we actually can hover over it. So what I would want to say over here, I would say display, and I would display none. So now you can see that it's gone, right? So how to get it back, right? So what we would need to do over here is, again, we would write nav, and then we would write UL, and then we would write LI, and then again UL, and we didn't need to write this UL, but we would need to write hover over here like this, and then we're saying that as we're hovering UL, right? And over here we would say display, and we would say display block. So let's check it out what happened. And you can see that right now what I'm saying is that I want only LIs, who are actually the children of a unordered lists, who are children of nav. As I'm hovering over them, I would want the child of them, the children who are unordered lists, to be appearing over here. That's why as I'm hovering over here, this is how it works. And you'll see that it's a basic idea behind all of them, right? And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to actually start working in a next level. So just to go over why we had this relative, because if we set this absolute, this is going to be the one that's actually holding this menu, so it doesn't go all the way up, because this is going to be, if this is relative, then this is going to be absolute, and it's going to be pushing all the way up to the here. if this wouldn't be relative, these list items, then it would pretty much go all the way to the top, and that's not what we want. So next in line, let's start styling over here these next unordered list. So what we would do over here, we would actually select that we would want again a next one, the nav ul li over here like this, and we would again write ul and li, and again we would say that we want them position, and we want the position to be relative, because again we want them to work as a basically as placeholders for the unordered list. And next thing that we want to do is actually start working with a unordered list that's in the very bottom, and we would say ul over here like this, and then we would say that we would want to actually add properties, right? And the property again would be position and position absolute, and over here we would say that we would want it, I don't know, top to be like, again in this case I'm just gonna write a 0, and over here I'm gonna say left, and in this case the left is gonna be 100%, and you'll see why I'm doing that in a second. And then again I'm gonna say display, and it's gonna be display none. And the last thing that we would not need to do is we're gonna add over here nav, and this is gonna be ul li, over here ul li, and over here hover, and I'm gonna say that as I'm hovering over that, the ul should be showing. So I write over here display, and this is gonna be display block. So now let's check it out what happens. You can see I'm hovering over the first list items over here, and my unordered list right here showing. Now as you can see, as I reach over here, this is going to be over here. As I reach, you can see that this list item right now is showing, and that's the point why we over here, why we did top 0 and left 100, because we want to be actually appearing from the side over here like this. So we just change it around. So let's say if I change over here like this, so let's say 50, you can see what happens, right? How it moved to the left. Now if we go back to 100, and let's say that we move the top to like -30, you'll see that then it's going to be lining up exactly where we want to be, because we obviously have margins and everything. So now you can see they're exactly on the top. And you can see that pretty much this video, I'm not doing any kind of nice updating or padding or anything like that, because I just want you to understand the basic idea how we can select either all of them or just a few of them that actually matter to us. So how do we create a navbar with a drop-down menus over here like this, right? So now you can see that the only thing that I have is basic ones. So I'm going to create a new file over here, and I'm going to say that this is going to be a navbar drop-down HTML over here like this. And what I'm going to do is grab the index. Again, I'm just going to take whatever we have over here, and I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to go, where's my navbar dropdown, paste it over here, and now I have my standard navbar. So the first thing that obviously we need to do is actually add a dropdown content. And let's say that we would want to add the 5th item over here, right? So this 5th list item. So what we need to remember is we always need to place it within this list items tags, right? You don't want to place it within the anchor tags, because it doesn't make sense. So over here, there's a couple of ways how we can do that. In this case, I'm just going to create another unordered list, and it's going to have a, let's say over here, this is going to be a 3 list items, and I'm just going to say that, let's say all of them have a anchor tag within them. However, that anchor tag is not going anywhere, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be link 1. And over here, I'm just going to paste this like, I don't know, 3 times, right? And now we're pretty much ready to go and start styling. Just again, remember that we need to place this within this list item tags, whatever list item we want, but we need to place it within the tags, however, not disrupt the anchor tag. And now let's go over one thing about CSS. Now remember that when we were styling, let's say like this, right? When we're writing that unordered list and then there's list items. What this means is all the list items that are descendants of a unordered list. So over here you can see that I have unordered list and I have these list items, right? But those are actually children and these are descendants. and these are also descendants. So what's happening is, when I write like this, when I say ULLI, right, I'm actually selecting these ones also. And that is the problem, because you can see over here that I'm actually saying them to actually be display inline block, right? However, I don't want them to be displayed inline block. I want them to be actually like a list, right? Because as we're going to be hovering over, it's going to be showing as a drop down. So what we would need to do, we would need to be more specific. So over here, I'm just going to say that I'm only selecting a unordered list that is the child of navigation. So you can see that I have the unordered list over here, but it's actually a descendant. So the only child over here is this one, right? This is the direct child of the nav. However, these ones are descendants, and I don't want to select them. So what I'm writing, I'm saying, listen, nav, I just want the children of your children, which are unordered list. And also I'm going to write over here, I'm just going to say nav, and only the nav that is affecting the unordered list. And over here, I'm just going to say, and children that are unordered list, right? So again, I'm just saying that these ones are only should be displayed as inline block. Only the ones on the top over here, right? The home info service survey dropdown, right? Not these links. These links I'm going to be styling separately. And one more thing, again, I'm just going to add over here. I'm just going to say that I want nav, I want UL and LI, and over here a anchor tag as well. And again, I'm just selecting the ones that are children. Now, there's actually, it is more easier if we don't do this in this case, because I want to style all the anchor tags. So I will gonna delete this for now, just so it's so we can see the difference, just so I can show you what's happening. But what's happening right now is that I'm pretty much selecting all the anchor tags, so they're all gonna be actually displayed the same way, right? So let's go over here, and I'm gonna start styling the actual list that I have over here. And the way I would do that is actually, I'm going to say that I would want to style a nav, the children of UL, and then all the descendants of these ULs, all the ULs that are descendants of this unordered list, right? So over here, I would say that I would want a margin to be 0, and I would want a padding to be 0. So you can see right away how they moved, because I'm only selecting this. You can see that I have actually left them alone, because I'm only saying the descendants of these ones, not the actual, all the unordered list. Now after that, I would want to say that I would want a position to be absolute over here, to be absolute. So you can see right away how it actually changed. And if I want the position absolute, I actually need to go over here and say that these should be relative, because they will going to be actually holding this drop down menu kind of responsible. So if I write over here relative, now this absolute is never going to go up. It's actually going to stay right here where the list items are, because I created this position relative, and this one has the position absolute, right? Now after that, what we would want to say is that we would want to be top 100% over here. So it's going to be, you can see that it's matching right away to the top, and you can still write position absolute, but however, if you're not going to write a top 100, you might sometimes have a problem where it's not showing the drop down, because if it's not like butted into all the way to the top. Now the last thing that should do is actually add a visibility hidden, right? Because we only want it to be shown as we're hovering over. However, I'm not going to write this right now, just because I want to show you what I'm doing with these list items, and then I'm going to set this visibility to hidden. Now after we're done with this, actually let's go and start styling these list items, these ones, not these ones but these ones, right? So again, we write nav and we say UL, and then we say a UL, and then we want a children, so we want the direct children of these list items. So we write over here, we say that we want them to be display, and we want them to be display block. So you can see right away those annoying little bulletin points we were getting rid of. Then we say that we want a background color, and we want a background color something like dark gray. So you can see that they're the same. After that, we will want a margin probably on the top. I'm just going to say that I want a margin a little bit on the top. I'm going to say that it's going to be like 20 pixels, something like that. Then after that, we're going to create a border radius over here, something like this, radius, and it's going to be 5 pixels. To add a box shadow, just so we can make those buttons over there, I'm just going to say box shadow. I'm just going to use something like 0.9 pixels, and I'm going to say that this is going to be black over here. So now you can see how we added our little over here, this box shadow. And what we obviously want them, we want them to be lined up exactly the same width, right? So we would skip over here to this unordered list, and we would add a width, and we would say that width should be like 100% over here like this. So now you can see that I've created them and they're exactly the same width, right? Now I probably in this case would want to change some things around. And first of all, again, I would want it to be shown only on the hover. And also I would want probably to change around this where it's spinning, right? So what we would need to first do is actually in visibility. So here I'm just going to say that this is going to be visibility and it's going to be none. Now that we actually, I'm sorry, hidden, not none. So here we write hidden. And when we are working with the blocks, we say block none. Over here we're going to say that visibility is going to be hidden. However, as we're hovering over a list item, what we're going to say is that when we're hovering nav and then we're selecting on our list item as we're hovering over. So what I mean by this, when we're hovering over these ones, what we would want to do, we would want this unordered list over here to be shown. So what we're saying is visibility, and it's going to be visible over here like this. So as I go back, see what's happening. Now I have these list items, right? Now that we have actually made them visible by actually when we're hovering over here, I would still want to change a couple of things. So the first thing that I would want to change is you can see over here this transition and transform. You can see over here we had this rotate, right? What I would do over here, I would just write scale. And I would say that I would want to be scaling like 1.3. Something like this. So when we go back, you can see what's happening. It's actually kind of zooming in because we use this transform scale. So instead of spinning around, we just used a little bit of animation where it's actually zooming in as we're hovering over our buttons. And the last thing that I would want to do is actually create a little bit of this little bit different animation effect over here. So I would want to say that I'm selecting a nav and over here a UL that are direct children. And after that, I would say that I would want a unordered list and list item over here. And I would say that when I'm actually clicking them, that's why I'm using this pseudo class active. And over here, what I would write is actually box shadow over here like this, box shadow. And I would say that I want 0.5 pixels and black. Again, we're using the box shadow property. And again, I would actually want to use a transform. And in this case, I'm just going to translate. And I'm going to say translate Y. And it's going to be 4 pixels, something like this. So you can see what's going to happen. See, as I'm clicking, it's actually working. It has this, gives this animation, and basically it's working like a trampoline or something, right? So that's pretty cool that we can what we can add. Now, again, we can marvel for a couple of seconds about what we have done, and actually move on and start creating a responsive navbars. So how do we create a responsive navbar? So the first thing we're going to do is actually create a new file. And I'm going to say that this is going to be responsive over here like this, HTML. And after that, I'm just going to use the brackets. And I'm going to say that I'm going to use the extensions. And over here, I'm just going to say that I want a basic HTML extension. And over here, we can write responsive over here like this. And now within the body, we can actually start creating these HTML elements. And the first thing that I want to do is actually create a header over here. And within that header, we're going to place our nav. And within the nav, we're just going to create a unordered list over here like this. And within an unordered list, we're going to create some list items. I'm just going to say that this is going to be a anchor tags over here like this, and they'll have a hashtag. And the next thing that we're going to be like named home. And over here, I'm just going to copy this, like, I don't know, 4 times. And this is going to be info. And the next is going to be survey. Over here like this. And after that is going to be a service. Over here. So now that we have our list items, we actually want to add over here a H1. Like heading 1, which is going to say like hello world, so we can see how when we're actually dealing with the responsive menu, how it is showing. And also what I'm going to do just for this responsive menu, I'm going to add over here a class, and I'm going to say that this class is going to be menu. And over here, we're going to add a span. This is going to be our toggling button. So I'm just going to say that this is span, and it has a class of button over here like this. And over here, we're just going to leave it blank, right? So pretty much now we have all our HTML set up. So we're ready over here to jump to our head tags over here. I'm just going to create a style tags. And within those style tags, I'm just going to start styling everything. So the first thing that I would want to do is actually start, again, as always, start styling the body. And the body, I'm just going to say margin 0, padding 0, right? This is going to be our goal. Margin padding 0. The next thing that I'm going to say is font family, and the font family I would want, let's say, monospace. And after that, I'm just going to say the font size is going to be 100%. Just going to keep it 100% over here. Now after that, we're going to style our header. So I'm just going to say header, and within the header, I'm just going to say the header is going to have width. Width is going to be 100%. Then after that, it's going to be text align. It's going to be center. And after that, we're going to say that font size over here is going to be 1.2 AMs. And the reason why I'm using EMs on responsive navbar is that you rather prefer EMs instead of pixels, because obviously as we're going to be working with our screen, you rather want your font size or any kind of measurement to be changing, because that's the whole point of responsive, right? If you're keeping it pixels, they stay pretty much the way they are in pixels. So I would suggest using EMs. And don't mind me what I'm suggesting in general. It's better to use EMs instead of pixels. Now after that, we're done with the header. Let's start styling the on our list. So I'm just going to say nav on our list. And again, we're going to start with padding 0, margin 0. And after that, we're going to say that background color should be dark gray, right? So here we have background color, and I'm going to say that this is going to be dark gray. So now we have our on our list. And after that, what we would need to do over here, we're just going to write a overflow property like this, and I'm just going to say that overflow should be hidden. And after that, what we're going to do is actually we're going to create a list style type, and we're going to say that this is going to be none. So here I'm going to say list style type, and I'm going to say that this is none. And now we're pretty much done with our list, and we're ready to move on to our list items. Now over here we would say nav lul li, and over here we're just going to say that this is going to be display inline block. So we have display, and display should be inline block, something like this. So now you can see right away how our links jump to inline block. And after that, what we want to do is actually I want to add the padding. And again, I'm just going to add in EMs, and I'm going to say 2 EMs, something like that. It might be less, might be more. Again, might be colors you would want different. I'm going pretty basic with the colors and with the sizing, just so to show you kind of main idea, and not to talk about like nothing for like 3 hours or something like that. Now, after that, when we're done with list items, let's actually start styling the anchor tags. So I have over here, I would write like this, that I'm selecting a anchor tag, and I would want to say that I would want a text decoration, none, over here like this. And after that, we're going to say that we'd want a color, and let's say again, we're just going to stick with our chocolate color, right? So this is pretty much a pretty standard navigation bar that we have done so far. Now what I would want to do differently over here, because we are going to be creating a responsive, we actually want to hover actually over the list items. So over here, what I'm going to write is nav, ll, and li. And over here, we have a hover. So when I'm actually hovering over list items, I'd want a different background color, and I would want a border radius. So I'm just going to say over here border, and I'm going to say radius somewhere. So this is going to be again 5 pixels. We're going to create those nice rounded corners. And after that, we're going to create a different background color. And I'm going to say that this background color, again, we're going to start with dark gray. However, I'm just going to show you what I usually do if I'm trying to test something out or just working to make some kind of sample. So go over here to quick edit. And as you can see over here, bracket allows me to go even darker or lighter, right? So what I usually do is just go with the same color, just a little bit darker. And then I can just save this over here. And now you can see that brackets ask me to pretty much refresh. But as I'm hovering over, you can see what's happening. And right now, all my background colors are pretty much, as I'm hovering, is changing. And now let's get to most interesting part, and that's actually our responsive stuff. So for the responsive, we would need to use this media query like this. So we would write media, and then we would say screen. And after that, we would need to write what is the width that we want to work with. And I'm just going to go with pretty, I don't know, not basic, but something that I just came up. There's really no reasoning for that. I just said like 700 pixels, something like that. And obviously what you need to understand, we can change these values as we want. Could have written here 400, 600, or 800. And obviously if you're working with the more complicated websites, you will going to be using actually not just one, but a couple of these screens where actually as the screen is changing, they are actually your elements are changing on a screen. And that's pretty much what you're doing with the media screen. What you're saying is, okay, you know what, browser, at this screen, whatever is going to be 700, I would want a different display, and we can say of anything, right? In this case, we're going to be working obviously with our unordered list and list items, but you can pretty much work with anything that you want. So over here, first thing that I would want to do is actually say that nav, ul, li, over here like this, and then I would say that I would use a box sizing over here like this, and I would say box sizing, and I would say that this is going to be border box, and after that I would say that this is going to be width of 100% over here like this. And you can see what's happening right away, right? That because we are obviously under 700, we already have this width over here. And after that, I'm just going to add a text align left, right? Because it's just going to look a little bit better over here. So that would be pretty much a basic of how we'd want our screen to be responsive. So this would be the most basic one. We pretty much would need to change what is the size where we want to go. And you can see that now our menu is pretty much displayed over here like this. This would be the most basic one. Obviously, what we're going to do is we're just going to add a button over here on top. We're not going to add the logo or anything. I'm probably going to do a separate video on that. But just for the basic responsive, this is all you would need to do. You would need to pick the size, and again, you can add multiple sizes. You can say like as many as you want, but we just chose one over here, 700, and then we just said, you know what? Instead of appearing inline block, we would just want over here the width to be 100. That's it. That's pretty simple. Now let's get to the more exciting stuff. And let's just see how we can actually make it over here a toggle. So now remember this class that we added, this button class, right? So over here in this media, when we are below 700, we're just going to add a rule over here for that. And what we're going to say that this is going to be a button, because that's the name of our class. And what's going to happen is this, we would want a display, and we would want a display block over here. So that would be first. Then we would say that we would want a background color over here, like brown, something like this. And after that, we're going to say that we're going to have a padding of 1.5 EM, something like this. Now you can see what's happening. That we have created our button over here. That's only showing in 700. You can see when we're going below 700. So you can see I'm going over here, and bam, here I have it. Now when I'm below 700, I have this block over here. And what else I would want to do over here, I would just say a button, and I'm going to use a pseudo class over here. And I'm just going to say button, and I'm going to say that before pseudo class over here, and I'm going to say that I would want a content, and I would want a content scroll button like this. So this is what I would want from my button. So now I have added this button before pseudo class. You can see that right now I added a content within the button, and pretty much we're done with CSS. But what we would want to do is actually add a little bit of jQuery so we can actually start actually toggling this, right? Because as much as interesting it is to have like over here this button and have these list items, we probably would want to click it over here and toggle it up and down, right? So how do we do that? Well, first we would need to actually get a jQuery, right? So what we would do over here, we're just gonna go into our beloved Google, and we would say that we would want a Google jQuery, right? Something like this over here. Now over here it's just gonna say a Google developers, and it's gonna be hosted libraries, and we just go over here where we see a jQuery library. You can see that it's right away in a script. So all we do over here, we're just gonna copy this, and I'm just gonna leave this Google open, and you'll see why. And I'm just gonna again open this one, and over here, obviously in the bottom of our body, we're just gonna paste over here a jQuery. And the next thing what we would want to do is actually add a script tags over here like this. Again, one more script tags, and within the script tags, we're obviously going to write a jQuery, a function that we would want to do. But obviously with the jQuery, the first thing what we always need to write is this function over here. Then we write a document over here like this. We say document, and then we say that when the document is ready, we want our function only to run then. So right, we write document ready, and then we say a function over here. And after that, we will just going to create what is the function that we would want, right? So over here, I'm just going to create a brackets again, angle brackets. And over here, I'm just going to add a semicolon. And within here, we're just going to write a function that we would want. And first, we would need to write a jQuery selector. And here, we're just going to say that we are selecting our button. This is our class over here like this. And after that, we're going to say that we're going to do a click over here. So when we're clicking that, and then we're going to create another function over here. And within this function, again, we're going to create another callback function. So over here, we're just going to create something like this. And again, some angle brackets. And again, we're going to add a semicolon. And after that, we're going to write the actual callback function. And over here, what I'm going to say is that I want to select my menu over here like this, and I want it to be a slide toggle. So what I'll do right here is I'll write menu, and over here I'm just going to say that I want slide toggle over here like this. And then we're going to say that we want a slow over here like this. And after that, we're going to say a function again, and we're going to say over here. And what we would want to do is again open up the brackets, and again now we're going to close them with the semicolon, and this is pretty much it. So what we need to do in this case with the brackets, we need to save it over here, and then we're going to refresh it, and now you can see what's happening, right? That as I'm sliding up and down, I'm actually toggling this menu. Now there's one glitch over here, and that's pretty much we would need to fix it by adding more jQuery. So when I'm going to be making a proper video just about a responsive navbar, just the same way how I did about this video about all the navbars in general, we're going to add this jQuery, this one more callback function, because the problem over here is as we're going above 700 pixels, you can see that it's actually disappearing. But I'm not going to add it right now for multiple purposes. And over here, so you can see that as we're working over here, that it's actually toggling. And if you just want to find this toggle, let's say this function over here, it's not a miracle to find that. So over here, we're just going to say let's say jQuery, right? Go over here. And over here, when we go to slide toggle, then we obviously go to jQuery API. And we just scroll it down, and look for where's the syntax. So over here, this is the syntax. This is what we could basically just copy and paste it in our document, and we pretty much would have a ready to go a function. And let's just close this over here, and let's just marvel again for a second what we have. You can see that right now it's working fine. It's still working as a navbar, but if we go over here, we have this little menu where we can just play around with our toggle over here. Now, the next thing that we want to do is actually create a transparent navbar in the middle of the page. So let's go ahead. So how do we make a transparent navbar in the middle of the page? So the first thing we would need to do is actually create a new file. And I'm going to say that this is going to be transparent over here like this. And I'm going to say HTML. So again, we're going to use the brackets extensions. We're going to say that we want a basic HTML skeleton. And over here, right away, we're just going to say that this is going to be transparent. Hope my spelling is correct. If not, well, there's nothing I can help you with. So over here, I have style. And within the style tags, we're obviously going to be styling everything. However, the first thing we would need to actually do is create our HTML setup. So in this case, I'm just going to say div class, and this is going to be a banner over here like this. And within this banner, we're going to create a nav over here like this. And within this nav, we're going to create a unordered list over here like this with, like, let's say, I don't know, 4 list items, right? So I'm going to say list items, and here is going to be anchor tags, something like this. And within the anchor tag, we're just going to say that this is going to be home. And we need to just place it that this is going to be a link going nowhere. So I'm just going to write home. And over here, I'm going to just copy this. Let's say, again, 5 times. And over here, what we're going to do is we're going to say info. And after that, we're going to say that this is going to be a service. And after that is going to be survey. And after that is going to be dropdown. Now we're going to make a dropdown menu again. So, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. So over here, again, I'm just going to create a little bit more space so we can see. And over here, if we go over here, you can see that here I'm just going to create a class, and it's going to be dropdown menu. Over here, dropdown. This is going to be my class name. Now I could have named it whatever I want. I'm just decided that this is going to be a better. So here I'm going to say class, and this is going to be a drop down button. So drop btn, something like this. And after that, we're going to say that there's going to be a drop down content, right? So what we would need to do over here, we're going to create a div, and div is going to have a drop down content. So I say drop down, and it's going to be content. So this is going to be my div, and I'm going to place some anchor tags within that div. So over here, I would say that there's going to be a first over here like this. And after that, we're going to say that this is going to be, I don't know, link 1, and I'm just going to paste them. So this is going to be my pretty basic HTML setup. So now we're ready to style it and actually create all kinds of background pictures and place it in the center and all that good stuff. So what do we do right now? We actually go to the body, and again, we say margin padding 0. Pretty basic, which is going to be happening with, if you're going to be creating a lot of navbars, that's what you'll be doing a lot. So over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be margin, and this is going to be 0, and padding is going to be 0. So now I have margin padding 0, and next I'm pretty much ready to go and style this class banner. So I'm going to say banner, and we're going to give it a couple of rules. The first rule is going to be width. The width is going to be, let's say, 100% over here like this, and then it's going to be height 440 pixels in this case. And after that, we're going to add a background image over here like this, and we're going to say that URL, and URL is going to be a coffee mug, something like this. So now we would need to refresh, and you can see that I have my coffee mug. Now after that, we would need to use a background repeat. So we have a background repeat, no repeat, like this. So you can see that it's now repeating. Then we would add a background size over here. We would say that this would be a cover because we wanted to cover whole div. And after that, we're going to say that position of this one is going to be relative. And why it's going to be relative? Because when we're going to be placing this navbar in the center, we actually want this to be relative because this is going to be absolute. Now we're done with a banner. So let's move on to a actual nav. And I'm going to say the nav is going to have a width, and that width is going to be 80%. And it's going to be 80% pretty much of this div, right? So I say 80% over here like this. And after that, I write that I would want a border radius, which is we won't going to see it. So you just need to trust me on that it's going to be there. Well, you will see it a little bit later, but you're not going to see it right now because you can see that I haven't added any background color. And after that, I'm going to say that this is going to have a position, and that position is going to be absolute over here like this. And after that, we're going to say that this is going to be top 50% over here like this, and left 50%. So this is the nav getting to the center. And the last thing we would want to do is actually would want to use the transform property over here. We'll say transform, and I'm going to say translate, and it's going to be negative over here 50, and it's also going to be negative here 50. So something like this. Now don't worry if right now it's not lining up. As we're going to be keep working, you'll see that it's actually getting where we want it to be. So over here, the next thing that we want to do is actually start styling the unordered list. So what we would say over here, we would say that the margin is going to be a 0 over here. And then obviously we would need to write also padding. So we go over here, padding 0, and list style type right away. List style type over here, which is I missed right now, list style type, and it's going to be none over here like this. And after that, we have a width that we would want to have a width of, let's say, 100%. So this is going to be our 100%. And after that, we're going to say that overflow is going to be hidden because we're going to be actually floating the elements of a unordered list items. So therefore, we need to use a overflow, and we would want to set the height. And I would want to set the height of 40 pixels. And after that, I'm going to say that the line height is also going to be 40 pixels. And therefore, we're pretty much done right now. Now, what we would need to do right now is actually work with a unordered list items. So here it would be pretty simple. I would say that I would want float, and I would want to float them left, and I would want a width of, let's say, 20%. So here I would write width, and I would say 20%. Now you can see what's happening. Now they are in the center where I want them to be, right? Now you can see exactly they're 20%. And obviously, if I would change this percentage of the nav, which is set to 80, it obviously would actually get less. However, the beauty is if I'm setting this nav to 60 to whatever, right, somewhere here, you can still see that it's going to be occupying 20%. And that's the good thing of working with percentages. You don't need to worry about pixels. You just set the percentages and you keep working with it, however you would want, right? Now, after that, what we would want to do is actually start styling the list items. So over here, what I'm going to do is actually start a list item over here, a anchor tag. And after that, I'm going to say that I would want a include a drop down button, right? And let me show you what I mean by that. Drop, and this is going to be button, right? This is what I'm doing. But here you can see that I misspelled it. So it's going to be drop down button. So what I'm saying over here is that I want to work with these anchor tags over here. However, I also want to work with this one, right? The drop down button, right? So therefore, I'm including it in the whole list. So then I'm saying that I would want to change, obviously, properties. And the first one is going to be display block. And obviously, display block is so we can actually click the link as we're hovering actually around the whole thing, not just around the text. And over here, what we would want to do is say text decoration is going to be none. Over here, text decoration is going to be none. And after that, we're going to say that text align is going to be center. So you can see how they move to the center. And background color, we're going to say, I don't know, like, I'm going to go with Greensboro over here. So it's going to be a little bit lighter. And after that, we're going to say that the opacity is going to be like 0.5. So now you can see how we made them transparent. And after that, we're going to add a color. And we're going to say the color is going to be chocolate. So now you can see how slowly but surely our actual nav bar is getting there. And actually, if you want, you can just leave it like this, like here. You know, you obviously, you can see as you're hovering over, it's working and everything. You know, it works as a link, but we're just gonna add some more stuff, and we obviously will use that drop down menu thing, right, which we actually created. So the next thing that we would want to do is actually work with this separate drop down, right? Because you can see that over here I created list items. However, this one has a different class, so I would want to include that one too. And then just for the sake of making sure, I'm just going to say drop down, and I'm going to say that this is going to be display, and this is going to be display block. And after that, I'm going to say that this is going to have a width also of 20%. So here I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to say that the width is going to be 20%. So now that we're done with this, we can actually go and style a drop down content over here, this guy over here, and then we're going to work on actual links over here. And the last thing that we're going to do is actually hovering and all that good stuff, right? So we go over here and we say that we would want a drop down content. This is going to be our class, drop down content. And you can hear that I have some ambulance in the background, but I'm just going to keep on going, and hopefully guys, you won't gonna lose your hearing or anything. So here I'm just going to say that this is going to be display, and this is going to be display none, because I'm going to be actually hiding it right away. And after that, I'm going to say that this is going to have a position, and the position is going to be absolute. And after that, we would say that we would want a top 100% over here like this, over here like this, 100%. And after that, we would want a background color again of Greensboro. So background color, and this is going to be Greensboro, something like this. And after that, we do a width, and width we're going to do of 204 pixels over here like this. And after that, we'll do a border radius. And again, we're not going to be seeing all these things because we have already covered them. But once we're going to be actually done with building, I'm going to go over why we did stuff certain way, right? So we would need a border radius like this right now. And we're going to say that border radius is going to be 5 pixels. And after that, we would want a opacity. And I'm just going to create a little bit more opacity. So I'm going to say 0.6, something like that. And now we're done actually styling this button over here, right? Not this button, sorry, this UL, right? This content, this whole div, we just style our div. Now you can see that it's not showing because it's actually a display property is none, but as we're going to be actually hovering, you'll be able to see that. Now after that, what we would need to do, we would need to start working with these anchor tags over here. So the next thing that I would want to do is actually select those specific anchor tags. So here I would say a drop down, and I would say content, and I would say that I would want a anchor tag within that content. And here I would say that again I would want a color, and I would want a color to be chocolate. And after that, I'm going to say that I'm going to have a padding. Padding is going to be, let's say, 12 pixels by, let's say, 16 pixels. After that, I'm going to say that I want a text decoration none over here like this, and I'm going to say none. And after that, what we're going to do, we're going to say that we want to be display block, pretty much like the whole other anchor tags. And after that, we're going to say that this is going to be text align center. And then we're going to say a border radius, and it's going to be the famous 5 pixels. And after that, we're going to say a border bottom. We'd want a, I don't know, like a 2 pixels solid black. So we have 2 pixels solid black over here. And after that, we would want a actual, as we're hovering, we're actually would be displaying, right? So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go back over here, and you can see that I misspelled over here black. So I'll need something like this. And over here, what I would write is, as I'm hovering over dropdown content is going to be showing. So I'm going to say dropdown and dropdown hover like this. And after that, I'm going to say that the class of dropdown content is going to be a display block. Display block over here like this. So now I'm just going to refresh it just in case, and maybe just save this one, not this one, because sometimes brackets messes with our heads. And you can see what's happening right now, right? As I'm hovering over, it's actually displaying over here. So obviously I set the width for 204, so you can change your width over here as well, and that would make a difference. However, if we go back now, we can just check it out what we did, right? So you can see over here, if you're working with this content, right? The first thing, if I would just get rid of this none, and you can see that right away it would be here, right? And we set the position absolute because we want it all the way on the top. Then we want a background color. This is the background color. Then the width, right? So over here, if I would write a width of, I don't know, 100 pixels, you can see what's happening, right? This would be our width. Then we have a border radius, and then we have opacity. And then obviously we worked separately on actual links. And the last thing that we said is, listen, only when I'm hovering over here, then display. And therefore we actually created over here display none, right? This was our key, display none. So this is how we can hide it. And as we're hovering, it's actually showing. And obviously we could have done the same thing. We could have placed this whole thing anywhere we want, right? Or have all of them, this list item, to have like another drop down menu. And the last thing that I would want to do is just add something with these anchor tags over here, just some hovering options. So what I'm going to write over here, I'm just going to say a class, and it's going to be a drop down content, obviously. Drop down content. And over here, I'm just going to say that as I'm hovering over, right? So I'm selecting the anchor tags that are actually within this class. And what I'm going to say is that I would want a border. Again, 2 pixels, solid black. And over here, what I would want a border radius. And I'm going to say that this is going to be like 5 pixels. So this is the last thing that I would want. And over here, so you can see as I'm hovering over here, you can see that I didn't add these border radiuses, I guess, to the list items, right? So I would need to go over here and see that I can actually add a border radius. This should be something that I would want. So over here, I'm just going to say a border radius, and this is going to be 5 pixels. So you can see how right now they have the border radiuses. This is what you want. So this is how we can actually create a transparent menu that is actually sitting in the middle of our banner. So let's move along and let's create a next navbar. So how do we create a equal length navbar? So we create again a new file, and I'm going to say that this is going to be equal and equal HTML. And over here again, we would need to use is brackets extensions. So I say basic HTML skeleton, and right away we're going to create these style tags over here. I'm going to say this is going to be style, and I'm just going to leave them empty, and I'm just going to say equal over here. So this is going to be equal length. And right now we're going to again have to create these our HTML elements. So over here it's going to be div, and the class is going to be, this time I'm just going to say this is ban, and within this ban we're going to place over here a unordered list over here like this. We just need to create a tags, and over here it's going to be list item, and list item is going to have a, let's say, a couple of obviously let's say anchor tags, right? So over here it's going to be link, this is going to be an href, and over here we're just going to say that this is going to be a hashtag, and over here it's going to be, let's say again, home. But what I would want to do is actually just make it a little bit more space for us to work. And next thing that I would want to do Actually just gonna copy this, and I'm just gonna copy this one more time. So this is gonna be about over here, and the next one is gonna be info. However, I'm right away gonna add a drop down menu to the info. So I'm gonna say about, and this is gonna be info over here like this. And what I'm gonna do over here, I'm gonna add a class, and I'm gonna say that this class is gonna be down. And after that, we're gonna create a div that has a class of nav. So over here within this li, over here like this, we're just gonna create a div, and that div is gonna have a class of down. So I'm gonna say a div and a class, and this is gonna be a nav, right? This is gonna be a drop down menu over here. So here I'm just gonna again write a link, and I'm gonna say that this link is gonna have a, I don't know, an href, and the href is gonna be a hashtag over here like this. And I'm gonna say over here this is gonna be link, and I'm just gonna copy and paste this 1 2 3. And what I'm gonna do over here, just to show you how it works, you can see that I have this list item, right? And this is the one that I created as one of my list items. So what I'm gonna do over here, I'm just gonna copy this like this and just paste it over here. So now I can see right away how I have the second one, right? So I don't need to repeat writing this everything. I'm just gonna name it differently. I'm gonna say that this is gonna be survey, and let's go and actually start styling. And obviously, like always, the body and a padding margin over here, margin 0, padding 0, something like this. And after that, we're gonna say that on word list, we would want to do something with that too, right? And as always, again, like you have seen in these last past examples, that it's again margin 0 over here, a padding 0 over here like this, and obviously list style type, which is we won't gonna be able to see it right now, but that one is also 0 over here. Well, I'm sorry, not 0, it's actually none over here like this. And after that, what we want to do is actually have a overflow property, and we would say that overflow is going to be auto. And the next thing, we were going to add a width, not a windows, width over here. We're going to say this is going to be 100% over here like this. So this is going to be our width. And after that, we're pretty much done with unordered list. And right now, we would need to start styling a list items. I'm just going to say that we're going to float them left over here like this. And what we're going to do is we'll actually have a width of 25% over here, so like this. So now you can see what's happening. Right now we have 4 elements. They're exactly styled, as you can see over here. And again, we will need to fix this, but don't worry about it. We'll do that. But you can see what's happening right now, right? Floated them 25%, and now they're sitting where we want us. Of course, we would need to get rid of these, fix them, and all that good stuff. Now, after that, what we would want to do is actually create to work with a unordered list items, and it's going to be the actual anchor text, right? And what we would want to do right now, we want to say that we would want them to be display block over here like this. So now you can see that I'm also affecting these ones right away. And what I would want to do is actually have a height, let's say 30 pixels over here like this. And the line height, I'm also going to make 30 pixels. So they're sitting exactly where I want them to be. Then I'm going to say that I would want a margin, and margin top, I'm going to make a right away 30 pixels also, because I just don't want them a little bit from the top over here. And I put margin bottom over here, but I would want actually margin top. Now I can, or not auto, top 30 pixels, something like this. And after that, we're going to create a background color, and it's going to be gray. So I'm going to say background color over here, and it's going to be dark gray over here like this. And after that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to have a text decoration of none. That's going to be those annoying underlines. And after that, we're going to say text align center like this. And now you can see what happened, right? You can see how we pretty much moved everything by, because our text wasn't in the center, it wasn't as a block. So the moment we made it as a block, then moved it, actually centered it, now you can see what's happening. Now our blocks are exactly where we want them to be, right? And now we're gonna add a border radius, and you can see that I'm doing a little bit different than the last example, because in this case we're just gonna see a little bit better how we're working with everything. So now we have border radiuses, and after that we're gonna create a opacity right away, and it's going to be like 0.6, so you can see how they are actually lighter. And then we're going to add a border, and over here we're going to say that it's going to be 1 pixel solid black over here like this. And the next thing we want to do is actually have a color of white. So you can see that pretty much we're right now I've done actually styling the links. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to actually style a link as we're hovering, right? This is going to be our case. So what we would need to do say is, I'm just going to say that as I'm hovering, I'm going to have a background color of pretty basic green, something like this. So you see what happens as I'm hovering. Now they're green. And after that, what I would want to do is actually have a, again, color white as we're hovering, but I think I'm just going to go with color black. As we're hovering, I would want a color black over here. So pretty much are going to be it for the when we're hovering over our links. And what I would want to do right now is actually style a links that are within these, within over here. You can see, right, within my divs. So I would say that I would check the class, and over here I would say that I would want a margin top over here like this. So I'd want to move them a little bit, and I would say margin top like 5 pixels, something like that, so that you can see they're a little bit closer. And over here I would say that I would want them to be display none over here like this. So now you can see that now they're hitting, and I would only want them to be shown as I'm hovering over them, right? So what I would say is I would use the class, which is a down over here like this. And then I would say, as I'm hovering over these classes, I would want them to be shown. So I would say down hover, and then I would say nav over here like this, and then I would want them to be displayed. And I would say a display and display block, right? So you can see what's happening is as I'm hovering over these classes, this class down, they're actually only showing. So that was our goal. And the last thing what we were going to do is actually create this banner with a class of ban. And what we were going to do over here is we were going to have a width over here like this. I'm going to say that this is going to be 100% over here like this, and then it's going to have height, and the height is going to be like 300 pixels, not 300, and then it's going to be background image, of course, and the image we're going to use is coffee beans over here. So we're going to say a URL, and that's going to be coffee beans. So again, I'm just going to save this, and you can see that now they're here. These are our coffee beans. And after that, what we want to do is actually create a no repeat. We're going to say no repeat here. We're going to say that background size is going to be cover. Background size is going to be cover over here like this. And that's pretty much it for this example. So now we can go over here and we can check it out. What do we have? You can see that we have transparent navbar, and as we're hovering over them, you can see that they're actually having a green background with a black color, and you can see that we placed the width exactly in the middle. And obviously we could have moved these ones down if we wanted to, but we just placed them like, I don't know, 30 pixels from the top. So now let's go to the next example and let's be done with all the navbars. Now let's jump to our last example and actually create a navbar with multiple dropdowns. So over here I'm just going to write multiple HTML, and over here I'm obviously going to go to the over here to the brackets extensions. This is going to be basic HTML, and over here I'm just going to say multiple over here like this. And obviously within the head tag, we're going to create some style tags. So over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to be style. And now we're ready to go to the body and actually start creating our HTML skeleton for that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create a div that's going to have a class of banner again. And over here within this banner, we're just going to place a nav over here like this. And within this nav, we're going to place a unordered list. And we're just going to create a couple of list items, right? So over here, we're just going to say that this is going to be a list item. And then within the list item, we're going to create a href, the link over here. And we're going to say that this is going to be home. And this is going to be, let's say, we're going to say that this is going to be info over here. Info. And we're going to create one more. We're going to say that this is service. However, in this one, we're going to place our first drop down. So I'm going to make a little bit more room. And I'm going to say that this is going to be UL. And this is going to be LI over here like this. And within that LI, we're basically going to create a, let's say I'm going to say that this is menu 1 over here. So we know that this is going to be our first link over here. But obviously we need to create a anchor tags as well over here like this. And within those anchor tags, we're going to just place that menu. So we're just going to cut this over here. And over here, we're just going to paste it. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create 1, 2. So now I can see that I have a first one service. And I also want to add one more with actually 2 submenus, right? I'm just going to copy this over here. And I'm just going to paste it. So now I can see that I have 2 of them. However, you can see I want to add one more over here. So let's just make it a little bit neater so we can see better what is happening. So this li is going to be working with our first one. So we're just going to make it a little bit more room. This is going to be our second li. And over here, what we would want to do is actually place one more submenu, right? So we're just going to create a little bit more room. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, listen, we're just going to copy this one over here. Just going to say copy. And we're going to place it over here. And we're going to say that this is going to be our submenu. So this is going to be our submenu, submenu, and submenu. So now I can see what we have, right? We have a navbar, has over here a 1, and then it has 2 submenus over here, right? So let's go ahead and let's actually start styling it. And as always, the first thing we would need to do is actually do the body over here like this. I'm just going to say that it's going to be margin 0, padding 0 like this. And then I would want to actually start styling a banner, right? So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say that I'm styling the class banner, the div that I just created. And over here, I'm just going to say that this is going to have a width of pretty standard 100%. Then it's going to have a height of, again, 440 pixels. Then it's going to have a background image, which is pretty typical already for us. We already should know how to do that. This is going to have a coffee over here like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this and refresh it. And now again, we would need to do the background no repeat, right? So background repeat, no repeat. And now we'll have a background size over here, size, and it's going to be a cover. So we're going to be covering everything. And then last thing what we want to do is actually create a position relative, just because we're going to be actually working with this navbar. Again, we're going to be pushing it up and down. So here we're going to write position and we're going to say that it's relative. Now that we're done with the banner, let's start working with a unordered list. But again, I want to work with just this unordered list over here, right? With these 4 ones, with home, info, and services, right? And over here, you can see that I have twice the name. So maybe let's put it survey over here. So let's start working with them. And the first thing what we want to do is actually say that it's nav, and we want a direct children that are ULs, right? And that are unordered listed are actually direct children. So we have say margin 0, we say padding 0 over here like this, and we would say that list style type is obviously going to be none, right? So we have list style type none, and after that we would say that we want a height, let's say of 50 pixels. Then we're gonna have a line height of 50 pixels, something like this. And the next thing what we would want to do is actually margin left. I'm just gonna give it like 20 pixels. And after that we would say that this is gonna be position absolute over here like this. And I'm gonna say that this is gonna be top 10%. So over here, I'm just gonna say top 10%. So now that we're done with actual unordered list, let's go to unordered lists items. So again, we're working with just a list items in our first row. So again, I'm using this syntax because I don't want to work with these ones for now. I only want to work actually with these list items. So over here, I'm just going to give them a couple of rules. I'm going to say that I want them to be display inline block over here, inline block. And I would want them to be actually width to be like 150 pixels. 150 pixels over here. So now I can see it's pretty much right now it's all over the place, but you can again you'll see how it's actually falling into the place. So after we're done with that, I would want to style all the anchor tags, right? So I would say is nav, ul, li, and all the anchor tags, and you can see that I'm not using this child selector, right? Because I want to select all the descendants over here, so all the anchor tags. And I would want them to be display block, and then I would want them to be text align center, and then I would want them to be like text decoration none over here, text decoration, and I would say none. After that, I would say that I would want a border 2 pixel solid black over here. And after that we would want to create a border radius over here of, let's say, 5 pixels. And after that we're going to say a background color. I'm going to say that this is going to be a dark gray over here like this. And after that we're going to create a opacity of 0.7 over here like this. And then we're gonna say that the color of the text is gonna be chocolate over here like this. And the last thing we're gonna do is say margin top is gonna be like 5 pixels over here. So now you can see how they all move down, right? Now we still need to work with our layout, so don't worry about it. This doesn't make sense right now, but it's gonna make sense in like few minutes. So here, now that we're done with actually styling the actual anchor tags, let's go ahead and then let's say what would happen as we're hovering. So I'm gonna say that as we're hovering over here over our anchor tags, I would want some type of border, and I would say that I would want a border, I don't know, of 2 pixels solid chocolate, something like that. Solid chalk, I don't know how we're spelling that, chocolate over here like this. So this is gonna happen as I'm hovering. Now that we're done with that, let's actually first work with the actual list items, and we're gonna say that all the list items, right? All of them, these ones, all of them are going to be relative because our unordered lists over here are going to be absolute, right? And there are going to be ones that we're holding them pretty much accountable. So I'm going to say nav, ul, li over here. And I'm going to say that their position is going to be relative like this. And now that we're done styling the actual list item over here, these first ones over here like this, well, it's kind of hard to see right now. It's probably better in HTML. As we're done styling actually these ones over here, as we're done styling them as a relative, let's actually style the unordered lists that are underneath there, right? So here I would say nav ul. That's going to be our next line. and I would say that I would want them to be display, and I would want them to be display block, and I would say that the width is going to have 100% over here like this. And after that, I'm going to say the padding is going to be 0 and the margin is going to be 0. And after that, we're going to say that list style type is going to be none over here like this. And after that, we're going to say that the position is going to be absolute, and position is going to be absolute with a dimensions of top, like let's say 100 over here, 100% like this. And after that, we're going to say that left is going to be 0. Left is 0. And before we make visibility hidden, let me just show you what happens. Right? So you can see over here that again, we created these ones as relative, right? This is what we did over here. We said that these ones are all relative, right? However, when we're actually styling this UL over here, that's why we're selecting, because we want to deal with actual these ones, right? These ones over here and these ones over here. This is that I want to deal with. So the way to do that, I actually say that they are going to be a display as block, because I want them to be actually this width. But then I'm saying that width is going to be 100%, but the position is going to be absolute. But since these are relative, that's why they're pushed all the way to the top. And I don't want them left or right. I mean, if I would change it over here, if I would say like something like 50%, you could see how they actually move, right? You can see how I'm moving, but I don't want to move them. Actually, I'm fine with 0%. So what's happening, you can see they're sitting right here, but they're all the way to the top, right? And the last thing that I would want to do is actually have a visibility, and I'm going to say the visibility is going to be hidden. However, if I go over here, and if I say that as I'm hovering over nav ul li over here like this, right? Those are the ones that I'm hovering over here, and I'm going to say that as I'm hovering over them, I would want a direct child over here of ul to be shown. So I'm going to say visibility visible, and let's check it out what we have. So you can see as I'm hovering over these LIs, they're actually visible right now. But you can see that I have actually, the other ULs are hidden for now, right? But these ones are actually visible. And that's the point of how we're dealing with the, as we're hovering, right? And after that, let's work with those last ones on our list that we had all the way in the bottom. And what I'm going to say is that I would want to style a nav, and this is going to be UL and UL over here like this. And then I'm going to say that again, the padding is going to be 0, and the margin is going to be 0 over here like this. And the list style type is going to be none. Pretty typical. And over here, I'm just going to say the position is going to be absolute again. But in this case, what I'm going to do is top is going to be 0 and left is going to be 100%. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that, why I'm doing this way. And over here, I'm just going to say that the visibility again is going to be hidden, right? Because I would want them to be hidden. However, as I'm going to go with the previous ones, we're going to make them actually visible. And what I'm going to say is over here, nav, and the direct child of nav. And then I'm going to say the ULs and list items over here. And then I'm going to say that the position is going to be relative over here again, like this. And now I'm basically talking about this guy over here. This is what I'm selecting. That's why I'm going nav, then I'm going UL, and then the other UL and list items. And I would want to say that as I'm actually hovering over it, I would want them to show the next unordered list. So I would write over here nav, UL, and I'm going to make it a little bit neater, UL, LI, hover, and then over here I'm just going to say that UL, this is what I would want to select, and visibility, visible. And now let's check it out what we have, and you can see what's happening, right? Now I'm going to make this screen a little bit bigger so we can see better. You can see this is our menu. Now let's go back over why we did those things, right? You can see this is what we're selecting actually. This is what we're working on, right? So what we did over here, you can see this top left 100, right? Top 0 left 100. See what over here what happens, right? You can see that this is right now the top, and this is left, right? So what I did over here, I want top to be 0. I don't want it to move to be top. I want them actually to be exactly in line, and I would want left to be 100. So let's say over here, if I do like 80%, right? And we go over, you can see it's actually moved to the left, right? Therefore, we want to be 100 because we want them side by side. Over here, if I would move the top, and if I would say like 5%, something like this. Let's go over, again, you can see that it moved down, right? However, if we would say like, I don't know, -5, again, you can see what's happening. Now it's actually moving up. And again, I'm just going to make the screen better. You can see what I'm working with. But the biggest point of when dealing actually with the navbars over here like this is actually to remember the fact that you are dealing with unordered list and list items, right? And therefore, when you're selecting them, there's cases when you want to select the whole thing. Let's say when you're working with list items, you want to select them all. And there's actually a couple of properties that you can right away, like you could have written over here just a couple of properties for all of them, right? It's margin, padding, list type, so you don't need to repeat like 50 times like I did. However, I just like to do that in this case just to show you how we're dealing with each separate case of unordered list and list items. And about visibility and hidden, you need to remember that you need to set the actual unordered list as absolute over here, and then you need to use the relative for list item. And then depending on the situation, you need to set the actual values for where you would want that unordered list to appear. This is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.